And good morning, friends. Welcome to The Bright Side. I am Pharmacist Ben, and thanks for being here. 844-236-6010 is our number if you have questions about health, nutrition, prescription drugs. If you want to get off your meds and get on a good nutritional supplement program, we can help you do that. 844-236-6010 is our number if you have comments or success stories, or if you just want to contribute to the conversation. 844-236-6010 is our number on The Bright Side. We'll get your calls next segment. We've got a really cool, we got two really cool guests coming up at the bottom of the hour. Dr. Philip Gua is a PhD in physics. He specializes in fluid dynamics and engineering. His wife is a naturopathic doctor, Dr. Regina Brew. We're going to talk about deuterium, heavy water, and the health benefits of heavy water with Dr. Philippe Gua. He's from France. And his wife, Dr. Regina Brew, at the bottom of the hour. Deuterium, heavy water. I've been using it in my skincare practice for many, many years. It's got some really interesting properties. And Dr. Brew and Dr. Gua have been using deuterium in their health practice. And we'll be talking to them at the bottom of the hour. We'll get your calls next segment, 844-236-6010. If you want to purchase longevity products, head to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. You can sign up to join the Brightside Ben team as well by clicking on the Join the Team link at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com for a one-time $30 fee. You can be in business for yourself. You can be an entrepreneur and be your own boss, make as much or as little money as you like, and help change the world with the power and importance of a good nutritional supplement program by helping people understand how important nutritional supplementation can be and helping provide some of the finest nutritional supplement formulations I've ever seen and I've ever used, and that's the longevity products. Call 866-735-2470 for more info, or head to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. Our number today, 844-236-6010. We'll get your calls next segment. We'll be talking some deuterium, high technology, with Drs. Philippe Gua and his wife, Dr. Regina Brew. With all the craziness in the world today, from COVID-19 mania and the hysterical reporting about cases, you hear all the time about cases. Cases are not cases. They're positive tests. A positive test doesn't mean, first of all, even leaving alone the fact that you have a positive test, the dubious nature of a positive test based on PCR readings of, I don't even know what they're reading, exosomes. They're not reading viruses because they've never even seen the virus. But they tell you about cases and people infected, infections and cases. They're not infections and cases. They're just positive tests. There's all the craziness about vaccines, untested vaccines being forced on the innocent, gullible, and unsuspecting victims by numbskulls like the Prime Minister of Australia, who probably doesn't even know what a vaccine is, saying yesterday that he's going to make the vaccine, quote, as mandatory as possible. You won't be able to go into restaurants without being vaccinated in Australia, presumably all over the world. You won't be able to get on public transportation without being vaccinated. You've got people on social media making fun of free thinkers and the liberty-minded who are trying to warn people about government creep and the surveillance state and totalitarianism. You got pinheaded puppets on the media repeating what they're told about the horrors and the end of the world hysteria of a health issue that affects a sliver of the population. It can be really difficult to get our bearings and see that there's actually a lot of good stuff that's happening in the world. We're beginning to understand how our minds work. We're beginning to understand the power that our mental nature and our emotional natures have over our bodies. This is becoming normalized and mainstream. The idea that meditation can be healthy, alternative medical practices, body work, chiropractic therapy, acupuncture, nutritional supplementation are becoming normalized. Your insurance company will pay for body work now. They give politicians, Donald Trump, they gave him melatonin and zinc. The mainstream medical model is beginning to understand strategies and therapeutic strategies that were wacko and fringe just not even 5 or 10 years ago. Meditation and yoga and spiritual practice are becoming recognized as valid therapeutic and healthful practices. We're beginning to learn to eat better. We're understanding how to eat better. We're understanding slowly but surely our relationship to nature and the environment, and the immensity of the universe is becoming clearer and clearer. Yesterday I read this amazing article that just blew me away from the Jerusalem Post. Former Israeli space security chief says aliens exist, but humanity is not ready. And according to this guy who was a retired Israeli general and a current university professor. He says that Israel and the United States have both been dealing with aliens for years. He's 87 years old, so I guess he doesn't care, what people think anymore. He just wants to get the word out. He says, he's, according to this article, he's a space security chief of Israel. He gave descriptions about what sort of agreements have been made between aliens and the United States. He says the cooperation includes a secret underground base on Mars where there are American and alien representatives. He says Donald Trump is aware of them, and he was on the verge of disclosing their existence. However, and this is a quote from the article, the Galactic Federation reportedly stopped him from doing so, saying they wish to prevent mass hysteria since they felt humanity needed to evolve and reach a stage where we will understand what space and spaceships are. Now, I don't doubt that there's other intelligences out in the universe, but the point is this stuff is becoming mainstreamed. It's out there in the press. What would happen 10 years ago if somebody came out in the press and said something like this? He would have been locked up in a psychiatric hospital. In fact, he even says this in the article somewhere here. He says, if I came out with this statement a few years ago, they would have locked me up and put me in a psychiatric hospital. Over 40 years ago, the way ahead of his time philosopher Robert Anton Wilson said, quote, "We don't know the outcome of the current worldwide transformation, so it seems sick and decadent when fashionable opinion harps on all the gloomy alternatives and resolutely ignores the utopian possibilities that seem equally likely and on the basis of past evolution, perhaps even more likely." That's what I want to stand for. That's what I want this radio program to stand for. That's what I want the bright side to stand for, focusing on what is possible in a positive sense, focusing on what is beautiful, good, and true. Socrates said, the key to positive change is to focus all our energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. And personally, I believe that if enough of us focus on making ourselves healthier, making ourselves smarter, making ourselves stronger on all dimensions, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, and we help each other develop SMEP, spiritual, mental, and emotional, and physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically, we can bring about a new world, a new perspective that honors each other, honors humanity, honors the natural world, honors our environment. I believe it's possible to have a world where we value the beautiful, the good, and the true, and that all it takes is going to be a change from being selfish to selfless, to redirect our actions, our behaviors, from service to self to service to others. That's what I want to stand for, and that's what I want this program to stand for, and that's what I encourage everyone listening to this, whether live or sometime in the future, to take that on themselves. All right, I'm Pharmacist Ben. Philip Gua coming with us. Philip Gua and his wife, Regina Brew, will be with us at the bottom of the hour. We'll get your calls. Next segment, 844-236-6010. We'll be back right after this. Okay, we are back on the bright side. 844-236-6010 is our number. And if you're on hold, hang tight. We'll get to you in just a moment. Dr. Philippe Gua and his wife, Dr. Regina Brew, will be with us at the bottom of the hour. We're going to talk about deuterium for health. Natural water contains deuterium in very small concentrations, but concentrating deuterium can have some interesting benefits, interesting health benefits, apparently, according to Dr. Philippe and his wife, Dr. Brew. We'll talk to them at the bottom of the hour and get your calls here in just a moment, 844-236-6010. So we've been talking about methylation. There's a really cool book out if you're interested in learning more about methylation called The Methylation Miracle. Actually, this came out about 30 years ago. Methylation kind of entered into the public awareness probably in the early 1990s. That's when I first started to hear about it. This book was 1999, actually. The Methylation Miracle by Paul Frankel. It's about a methylating ingredient or methylating molecule called SAMe. There's lots of ways to methylate. You don't need SAMe to do it, but SAMe does have some interesting health benefits. Methylation is like, along with antioxidation, in fact, it is just as important as antioxidation, even though you don't hear about it as much. But as far as good health goes, having appropriate methylation is really important. If you have an MTHFR deficiency, you basically have a methylation problem. It doesn't mean you're cursed. It just means you have to focus on using methylating molecules or methylating nutrients. which SAMe is probably the most famous of the methylating nutrients. It's a derivative of the amino acid methionine. Human beings, or Americans anyway, get a lot of methionine from meat. If you're a meat eater, you're probably getting lots of methionine, which may not be, methionine gets turned into homocysteine. And that's really kind of one of the knocks on meat. When people talk about the problems with eating meat or eating animal foods in general and its association with heart disease, one of the things that they're talking about is this transformation of the amino acid methionine into homocysteine. Methionine is found in muscle meats and high-protein foods in general, and it's a very important amino acid. But if you're getting a lot of methionine and you don't have enough methylating agents, or you have an MTHFR deficiency, or you're not methylating correctly, that methionine can be turned into homocysteine, and homocysteine can be a problem. That's what Dr. Kilmer McCulley said back in the late 1960s, early 1970s, and we've had Kilmer McCulley on the bright side in the past, and Kilmer McCulley is unfortunately now he's beginning to be respected, but when he first came out with the so-called homocysteine theory of heart disease, the mainstream medical model did not take kindly to it, and he was somewhat ignominiously, no, I don't know what that word is. He was somewhat, unfortunately, we'll say, kicked out of Harvard and vilified and demonized and called a quack, because that's what the mainstream does to people who are on the fringe sometimes. These days, Dr. McCulley is much more respected, as is the homocysteine theory of heart disease, and we'll continue talking about homocysteine and methylation here in the coming Bright Side episodes. All right, 844-236-6010. Let's give our friend Dorian some airtime here. Dorian, good morning. How you doing, buddy?
My mom has an issue with sleeping.
Oh, Dorian, you got your phone. You got your messed up phone again.
I know.
You got to fix that. Tell me what your question is. I'm going to have to let you go because I can't handle that.
Sleeping issues.
Sleeping issues. Yes, many people have sleeping issues. Dorian, okay, that's better. It's a little better. A lot of people have sleeping issues. Have you noticed how many mattress commercials there are out there and pillow commercials there are out there? And it seems like everybody is obsessed with getting enough sleep and nobody's sleeping enough. I think personally the big problem we have with our inability to sleep is cortisol. Elevated stress hormone will keep you from sleeping. Also, we tend to be very mental in our lives, and we think a lot, and we're not in our bodies. When you can't sleep, you can rest assured that you're overthinking or you're thinking too much. Learning how to return to the body is one of the all-time great sleeping strategies, and in general, focusing on the body activates the relaxation nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system. Even just paying attention to your hand, or paying attention to your fingers, or paying attention to any body part, or paying attention to a body rhythm, like breathing or the heartbeat, will slow things down and will put you into a parasympathetic state that will make it easier to sleep. If we have things in our mind that we're trying to suppress, if we have the kind of lifestyle where we're always doing things, we're always cooking or cleaning or running here and running there and working, and we always have to be active, a lot of times that's because we're trying to suppress thoughts. We're trying to suppress things that we don't want to think about. But then when we lie down to sleep and we're not cooking and we're not cleaning, we're not running to and fro, all of a sudden all those thoughts that we've been suppressing by our activities, they come out. And so learning to deal with your mind is really important, number one. Learning to deal with your thoughts, learning to respect your thoughts and not take them seriously, but to understand the thought process. It's the most important thing I believe that we can do in our lives is understand our minds and understand the thought process. And that's what meditation is about, by the way. And a meditation practice is awesome for helping you fall asleep, because if you learn to meditate correctly, what you'll learn to do is allow your thoughts to be without getting attached to them, without believing them. And if you can learn to let your thoughts be without being attached to them or believing them, that can help you fall asleep. Taking your thoughts seriously is one of the main reasons people can't fall asleep. Think about it. No pun intended. If you're just lying there and you can't fall asleep, aren't you thinking about stuff, Dorian? Isn't stuff crossing your right? Isn't stuff crossing your mind? What you have to do, what you should have done, what you shouldn't do, all the things that we try to suppress. the events of the day and past traumas and future anticipated worries or anticipated events that are negative. All these things go on in our minds, and if we believe them or attach to them, of course it's going to be difficult to sleep. If you think a thought that you don't like, your cortisol is going to go up and it's going to wake you up. So learning to detach from your thoughts, number one, and learning to go into your body, number two, by focusing on a body part or a body rhythm. Those are two very powerful strategies for falling asleep. Another one is to think really good things or think kind things. Kittens. I have a friend who thinks about warm, fluffy kittens, just being surrounded with warm, fluffy kittens when she can't fall asleep, and she falls right asleep. And what does that do? That activates her relaxation nervous system. Don't watch the news, by the way, before you go to bed. Use red light before you go to bed, not blue light. Our television and our smartphones and our computers are all blue light, and they tend to be activating. Red light, on the other hand, tends to be relaxing. You can actually buy red lights on Amazon or in a hardware store and just use a red light for an hour or so before you go to sleep. Just plug in just turn on a red light. And then, of course, there's wonderful nutritional supplements. Melatonin is great. Although melatonin can help you fall asleep, it doesn't necessarily keep you asleep. GABA can also help you. The amino acid glycine, which we're going to be talking about here in a few days, that can also help you. And the amino acid tryptophan, also 5-HTP, can help you. Magnesium has relaxing effects, as does lithium or lithium orotate. By the way, I just found out recently that 7-Up used to have lithium in it, and they used to recommend 7-Up for dissolving uric acid stones. Just a little digression there. And then also slow, deep, rhythmic breathing. In fact, just watching your breath, not even trying to breathe a certain way, but just watching your body breathe, watching how the body goes in, the breath goes in and out of the body, can help relax you and help you fall asleep. Hope that helps, Dorian. Thanks for your call, buddy.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Take care, my man. All right, Dr. Philippe Gois and his wife, Dr. Regina Brew, will be with us in our next segment. We're going to talk about deuterium. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We'll be back right after this. We are back on the bright side. I'm Pharmacist Ben, and we're on the air Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 Pacific and 10 to 11 Central Time, and 24/7 on the archive page at benfuchsarchives.com. Also, brightsideben.com. You can purchase longevity products at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, and criticalhealthnews.com. We've got news stories, blog posts, as well as videos, interviews, lots of great health information on all our websites and the longevity products. And you can also sign up to join the Brightside Ben team off the websites brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, and criticalhealthnews.com. And don't forget to take a look at our Truth Skin Health products, all available at truthtreatments.com. Never any preservatives, fragrances, fillers, waxes, emulsifiers, water, silicone, vegetable oil, nothing your skin doesn't need or doesn't want in any of our Truth Skin Health products, all formulated in my compounding pharmacy for healing wounds. Healing wounds, as it turns out, is the same biochemistry, involves the same biochemistry as beautification. And if you can't put your beauty product on a wound and have it accelerate the healing of your skin, it probably isn't a very effective beauty product. And that's what all our Truth Skin Health products are. They're very effective beauty products as well as health products designed for healing wounds and preventing scarring. You can find them all at truthtreatments.com, and make sure you take a look at our 1,400 plus 4- and 5-star reviews at truthreviewed.com, truthreviewed.com. Okay, I am really looking forward to our guests. Dr. Philippe Gois and Dr. Regina Brew have a clinic here in Denver. I met them about a month ago, maybe 5 weeks ago, at an event, an exosome event, and we were talking about, we were discussing exosomes and their value for health. And I was watching Dr. Brew and Dr. Gois, and I kind of thought I knew them, but it turned out I didn't. But as we started to talk to each other, I realized, well, I should know them because they are right in line with everything we talk about here on the bright side. Dr. Gois is a physicist, and he understands fluid dynamics as well as the physics of health. Dr. Brew his wife is a naturopath, and we're going to talk about deuterium and deuterium depletion. Please welcome to the bright side, Dr. Philippe Gois and Dr. Regina Brew. Hey, guys.
Hello, Ben. How are you?
Hello. Good morning. Good morning to both of you. Good morning to both of you. And when you told me about deuterium this morning, Dr. Gua, I was thinking about the health benefits of deuterium. But as I got into your work, you talk about deuterium depletion as an anti-aging strategy. So why don't you tell us a little bit about just what exactly deuterium is, how it relates to specifically the mitochondria and energy, and why it has why depleting it has anti-aging effects.
Yeah, absolutely. So deuterium is isotope of hydrogen is everywhere. As a matter of fact, in our water, there are about 6 drops of deuterium for every liter of water we drink. And now there's been over 20 years of research that shows that accumulation of deuterium, contributes to mitochondria dysfunction. And mitochondria are in cells. And so we have a deuterium test, so we can actually test deuterium in saliva, and we have designed a drink that help deplete the body from deuterium.
And, I'm going to jump in a little bit more for the deuterium. It's something that people really kind of, when they hear that word, they basically shrug their shoulders and they say, oh, my God, what is that? Because it's even hard to pronounce. Right. But in reality, like Philippe said, it's everywhere. In our water, in our food, because hydrogen is hydrogen. It's the smallest molecule, and it's basically everywhere around us. But what people don't know, that it comes in a light and a heavy form. So it's a heavy brother and a light brother. And the difference between them, when you get the heavy one, which is deuterium, it becomes very detrimental to the health because it cannot function inside of the mitochondria like light hydrogen will. Everybody knows ATP production, and cytochrome 5 is ATPase, where our electron chain transport kind of ends and we make energy. Well, when heavy hydrogen is replacing the light hydrogen, and it hits the ATPase, it physically cannot go through it. And so those nanomotors are basically breaks, and we lose our ability for mitochondria to function at the optimum level very quickly.
Okay, so let me see if I got this straight here, okay? Deuterium is a form of hydrogen that interferes with ordinary hydrogen processing at the level of the mitochondria. Hydrogen processing at the level of the mitochondria is required for energy, and deuterium will interfere with that. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And, it's a very similar structure. The only difference is it's neutron, proton, and electron. So it's basically
has a neutron.
Correct. The neutron is added. So electron and proton would be hydrogen, and neutron is added with deuterium, and now this guy changes completely spin and the atomic structure. And so you don't really feel any difference because it's still kind of same water. But in the water is 155 parts per million, that seawater. In deuterium, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Continue.
Okay. Philippe, what was this?
No. So the thermodynamic property of deuterium versus hydrogen water are different. And so the level of deuterium, if you're at sea level or in high altitude, are different. And so by and large, the amount of deuterium in our drinking water is about 155 per million. But but if you go in high altitude in some places, water is deuterium depleted. And
hang on, Philippe. So deuterium depletion is more common at higher altitude, like here in Colorado?
That's right. We are very lucky in Colorado. If you go high enough, you can get water at 135 parts per million.
Because of freezing.
Because the thermodynamic property of deuterium water, it freezes at different and evaporates at different temperature, and that's why when you're in elevation, the water is deuterium depleted, but not completely to satisfaction, because a lot of research has shown that healthy, deuterium below, ideally you have to have lower than 130 parts per million deuterium in your body to reach optimal health.
So is this a problem that is getting worse, or has deuterium always been with us in the water supply, or is it associated with toxicity at all?
Deuterium is obviously it's been for as long as we live, but lately it's actually with all this global warming and a lot of contribution from other things, we actually have definitely increase in deuterium in our water and on our food.
Do you have a way of testing for people's deuterium levels in their body?
Yes, we do. We have a easy-to-use saliva kit where you can sample your saliva, and then we can give you the deuterium value, in that clinical sample very accurately.
Have you developed a relationship or seen a relationship between chronic diseases or illnesses or chronic fatigue or just feeling lousy and high levels of deuterium in the body?
It's a great question because this is what we talked, and I cannot talk enough about that to people I work with.
Dr. Brew, we got to take a break, but I want you to address that when we come back. The relationship between elevated deuterium and health. All right, I'm pharmacist Ben. We've got Dr. Philippe Goua and his wife Regina Brew. Dr. Regina Brew. We're talking deuterium depletion and anti-aging. We'll be back with more of Dr. Brew and Dr. Goua on the bright side right after this. Okay, we're back on the bright side talking to Dr. Philippe Goua and his wife, Dr. Regina Brew, about deuterium and deuterium depletion. So before we went to break, Dr. Brew, I believe, we were talking about the relationship between ill health and chronic disease, and also I would imagine energy issues like chronic fatigue problems and deuterium. Tell us what you're finding.
Yes, so everything right now every leading actually expert in the world, they agree on that because it's very obvious. And what they agree on is that our energy production is the most important thing and a leading cause in chronic diseases because when we are unable to make that energy, which will be made by mitochondria, then we cannot really have any processes to take place, like autophagy and apoptosis will be not as they require for normal body function. So every chronic disease...
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just tell us about autophagy and apoptosis. What do you mean by that?
So autophagy and apoptosis is two processes by which our body repair and rejuvenate itself. Apoptosis it's a cell death, and autophagy is actually repair. So when you think of an engine, so when your car is completely done, you hit the tree and it has to be thrown away, that would be apoptosis. And autophagy is when you have a motor in the vehicle and all of a sudden something goes wrong and you just have to go in and fix it. But, people concentrate so much on food because they think that if we eat, carbs or protein or fat in this amount and that amount, that will kind of fix us, because it's supposed to be diet. But what people don't understand, that every single food that you eat will be broken down to electron and protons. And protons is precisely the hydrogen that we talked about earlier. So when this food is broken, and I always said, it's a lot of nutritionists out there, but you have to learn the right way because it's not the food, it's what the food is made from.
The energy in the food.
The energy in the food, yes, because the energy, and it goes even further, and I don't think that we want to open that can of worms, but that energy is highly quantized to sun, because everything in the world is grown underneath the sun, and the sun has a barcode, and that barcode is precisely what codes the hydrogen. So when we eat the food and it finally goes through all these processes and it enters mitochondria and it enters electron chain transport, that's where we make energy, but that's where electron and hydrogen play a big role. Because if it is deuterium and it's not, and it's heavy and it will break the neurometer, now you're not making energy. Well, everything ties to signaling. So now mitochondria DNA, because everybody knows we have a DNA, but we also have a mitochondria DNA. That is much smaller, and that mitochondria DNA is actually played the biggest role in how how the body will respond to having less energy. Simply said. And
what's the relationship between deuterium and the mitochondrial DNA?
Well, the mitochondrial DNA, so mitochondria is actually responsible for that. Well, how to even explain? It's all about signaling. So we have to have a signal. Like everybody knows the free radicals, and they say, oh, we need the antioxidants to fix because we have too much of it. Where in reality, the free radicals is how our mitochondria signals. So when it's actually a gentleman. He's a PhD in a Philadelphia Children's Hospital. His name is Doug Wallace. So if anybody interested besides this 15 minutes of interview to know a little bit more about it, I highly recommend, because he's the one who discovered that mitochondrial DNA actually belongs to our mothers. And so and like almost every single person. And so the mitochondrial DNA plays the much bigger role in basically development of diseases. So when the energy goes down, go ahead.
I was going to say, this is all boils down to just energy and interference with energy, with the production of energy at the level of the mitochondria. That's what we're talking about here. Is basically deuterium plugs up the works. It plugs up the machinery. It plugs up the machinery. So how do you clear? How do you clear it?
I want to just say that inner mitochondria membrane is supposed to resonate at 100 hertz, and when we lose that electricity, that's where the signaling is subside, and that's where we increase the distance between the cytochromes, those 5 proteins that are embedded in the membrane, and that's how we increase the energy loss.
Well, without getting into the minutia, we're just talking about gumming up the machinery, basically.
Yes.
So now, how do you clear this? How do you get rid of this? It sounds like a big problem.
The only it's a 2 ways. You can deplete by utilizing deuterium-depleted water, or you can eat a diet that actually naturally is low in deuterium. It all depends. This is where a very important point. It depends on how much of deuterium, that's why we do the test, that each individual has. Because when I tested myself, I ended up being the highest we've ever tested, which is very bizarre to me because I do detox and I do so many things, which a lot of people think that is enough. But my genetics, that's where sometimes it does play a role, just put me in not such favorable position, and so I do not deplete deuterium as easily as, for example, my husband, because we both were high. He started depleting it through use of sweat, diet, and
you mean by sauna?
Water.
You mean by saunas and exercise and that kind of thing? You can deplete your deuterium by exercise, by sweating it out?
Yes. Yeah, you sweat that out. Yeah. Do you notice that when you deplete deuterium or you use deuterium depleting strategies that people get better or feel better? It's an amazing difference. It is truly an amazing difference because where everything in your engine works better, then you can, the performance. If you're an athlete, it increases the performance. If you're an ill person, and that's another thing that I kind of start talking about, every chronic disease are originated from inability body to repair itself, which means mitochondria is not producing energy, and that's how it's tied up to a deuterium. So when you deplete deuterium and now you make more energy, you make a better signaling, the body can get hold of whatever it needs to do and does it very well.
And how long does it take from a deuterium depletion protocol to feeling better? If say you have arthritis or you just have some kind of chronic illness, how long does it take for you to know? Is it immediate?
Well, it's immediate, but it's really funny because me and Felipe did it the same, and this is a really cute short story.
Yeah, so we have a program where we tested day one. We were on the program for 45 days, where we drank our drink that is deuterium depleted, and then we tested again 45 days. And so the result for me is I was able to really drop my deuterium level to 115 parts per million. And Regina was merely getting below 130 in the same amount of time. So it's different. It depends on how total amount of water you drink, your weight, where you are geographically, and whether or not you exercise and you eat.
Yeah, but we both felt amazing. He does cycling, and he went on a mountain, I'll never forget. And he was able to do, because he timed himself, the same routine. He cut his time dramatically. Like, for someone at his age, it was pretty interesting, where I felt that I can definitely have more energy during the day. So it comes in a different shape and forms, but improvement is instantaneous.
What kind of foods? You mentioned foods for deuterium depletion. What do you suggest?
Well, the lowest amount of deuterium is in fat. So the animal fat, but the animal has to be grass fed, because if the animal is fed with a grain, by itself, it's trouble. But it has to be grass fed, because when animal eats the grass, it naturally depletes deuterium. And then we eat that fat and that meat, fatty meat, actually. It's really interesting how people are afraid of that, but in reality, that's their best food, as long as it's organic and grass fed.
Okay, we only have about a minute here. Well, actually, we're out of time, but somebody has a problem, a chronic health challenge they want to deal with, they want to deplete their deuterium. How do they get a hold of you? What do you suggest they do?
So we are based in Denver on Lincoln 9th. Our company is Eon Well, and you can come and get the website.
What is the website, Philippe? Philippe, what is the website?
EONWELL.com. EONWELL.com.
EONWELL.
EONWELL.
EONWELL.com. Thank you. We're out of time, Philippe and Dr. Brew. Appreciate you coming on the bright side, and I learned something new. I appreciate that as well. Deuterium depletion.
Thank
you, guys.
Have a great day.
Have a great day yourself. And that's all the time we have for today. I am Pharmacist Ben. Have yourselves a wonderful, beautiful, awesome, spectacular day, folks. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye for now.